Let's get ethical, ethical. I wanna get ethical.
Something I've noticed lately in my wanderings through the atheist community is a tendency towards a view of morality that I'll call an anti-religious morality. By an anti-religious morality, I mean a conception of morality that arises directly from the deconstruction of religious morality. So for example, when a religious person claims that without God, moral values are just arbitrary options, the immediate reaction is to respond to those terms by scrambling to establish an irreligious basis for a universal atheistic morality. I'm extremely skeptical about this process of reasoning. Accepting the premise of this objection allows for the religious person to frame the atheist's meta-ethical outlook, and it will ultimately bias the conclusions that are arrived at. This bias, in turn, seems to manifest itself as a backward method of establishing a moral philosophy. But I'll come back to what I mean by that later in the video. There's an epistemological concern with the kinds of thinking that emerges from an anti-religious morality, and that is in its focus on establishing a basis for moral norms. Usually this move takes the form of justification through the sociological impact of various actions. This is a move that both you and Sam Harris make to establish the grounds for morality. The difficulty here is that this move necessarily assumes the vision of a just society. And that's okay, so long as that vision is sketched out and able to be scrutinized on its own grounds. But of course this keystone piece to your argument is glossed over, leaving the morality that emerges from it devoid of any real substance. The 20th century German philosopher Theodor Adorno argues for a morality based on a social vision quite beautifully in his seminal work Negative Dialectics. The reason why I accept Adorno's approach and reject your approach on this methodological point is that Adorno's philosophy is built around a reassessment of all aspects of experience, as well as the intention to overthrow the very foundations of a society that allows for such sufferings to transpire. Your thinking on this point, however, seems to be organized around strategies for debating religious people. If we accept that there is a vision for a just society implicit in your understanding of morality, then it follows that there is some idea of human nature also implicit in this understanding of morality, from which a just society could potentially be constructed. These questions are necessarily entailed in your argument, and really in any discussion of a social morality, and can't be ignored or glossed over. Without some idea of human nature, and from that, some conception of a just society, it is vacuous to talk about, as you put it, a happy, healthy, flourishing society. You seem to be comfortable asserting that the basis for your morality is on social well-being, but this statement is fallacious. It's based on a conception of human nature, and that is the only coherent starting point for this argument. It's because of this point that your understanding of morality is backwards. If on the other hand you start with an understanding of human nature and extend it outwards into a social organization that is worth working towards, then from there you derive your various moral prescriptions. I think you end up not only with staggeringly different, but infinitely more powerful results. Here's an example of this kind of reasoning.
Well, let me begin by referring to something that I've already discussed. That is, if it is correct, as I believe it is, that a fundamental element of human nature is the need for creative work, for creative inquiry, for free creation without the arbitrary limiting effects of coercive institutions, then of course it will follow that a decent society should maximize the possibilities for this fundamental human characteristic to be realized. That means trying to overcome the elements of repression and oppression and destruction and coercion that exist in any existing society, ours for example, as a historical residue. Now, a federated, decentralized system of free associations incorporating economic as well as social institutions would be what I refer to as anarcho-syndicalism, and it seems to me that it is the appropriate form of social organization for an advanced technological society in which human beings do not have to be forced into the position of tools, of cogs in a machine, in which the creative urge that I think is intrinsic to human nature will in fact be able to realize itself in whatever way it will. I don't know all the ways in which it will.